So what we're going to attempt to do here is to really help you understand, define creators a bit, and also what we mean by credentials, because a lot of words are floating around in our world right now. And the more that we land things, the more that we can make business cases for things, and the more that things flow, money flows. So first I want to do just a quick speed round of introductions. So let's start with you, Dylan.
Hey guys, my name is Dylan. Content creator with 6 million followers, and I run a national organization called Reach, which is in 75 universities, 2,500 influencers, 400 million followers amongst our members. So,
fantastic.
Hi, I'm Jared Kleinstein. I run Gondola, which is a tool for creators to build portfolios and gather analytics on their work and get credit for everything they do on social media.
Hey everybody, Daniel Abbas. I'm president and founder of the Creators Guild of America. Thrilled to be here and awesome to have creators represented at NAB.
And if any of you feel like spontaneously clapping, that's always nice.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jim.
All right. And just to start off this conversation, whenever you want to hire someone or you're trying to find out, is somebody really who they say they are in this business, in the business of media and entertainment, usually there's somewhere you can go to look up how real they are. And right now, the challenge in this space with this amazing explosion in the creator economy and with the creators and influencers, which we are going to help define, there really is no way to truly understand how real someone is. You know, are they doing what they say they're going to do? And so part of our conversation is going to be that there's a business happening there. There's companies doing this and helping to land the plane. And so I want to hand the conversation over to Dylan first. But before I do that, I just wanted to bring up that in the U.S. Census right now, which actually talks about careers and business categories, there literally is no career under creator. There's not even anything under social media right now. And we were talking about numbers amongst ourselves. Now, I have a number just for the U.S. that basically says there are 27 million paid creators just in the U.S. And I know you guys have other numbers. Do you want to share?
Yeah, Goldman Sachs came out estimating that the creator economy is worth roughly $500 billion by 2024. Going back to the workers' classification concern, if there's a creator that is working as a creator full time, they can't get a bank loan. They can't apply for certain credit cards because it's not a recognized classification in the labor system. These are some of the challenges.
There's also some irony to that, because if you ask any of you that have kids if they want to be a doctor, a lawyer, or a YouTuber, they'll say YouTuber. So
I would still like my daughter to be a doctor, but that's not going to happen. All right. Dylan, tell us about Reach. Dylan is a living and breathing Gen Z. And I love how focused he is and what he's accomplished. So talk about what you're doing.
Thank you. Yeah, well, Reach for me is this national collegiate influencer organization. It's the largest non-Greek life association for college students. And we really saw the vision of social media and the landscape of social media being that there aren't that many universities that teach about influencer marketing or the creator economy. There's only about 10 to 15 universities max that teach about the creator economy. I'm a current student at the University of Southern California. And we really saw that, we wanted to build a place where creators can feel empowered to learn from each other, to grow from each other, to collaborate with each other. So we built it up, and in the last 14 months, we've expanded from one university at USC. So now we're in over 75 universities across the United States. So, like I said, we have 2,500 influencers nationwide. It's not specifically strictly for people passionate about being an influencer and a content creator, but also people interested in the back end, in influencer marketing, in entrepreneurship, in the creator economy. So, we're working with Fortune 500 brands. We are supporting our members with educational workshops. We're bringing guest speakers like Sydney Sweeney, Cameron Dallas to all these universities to come speak about the social media landscape. So really empowering those individuals who are passionate about the social media landscape. This slide, I wanted to showcase just a few of the brands that our creators are working with very actively. Company like Netflix, company like Amazon. We're doing an event with Amazon on Tuesday for Zendaya's new movie where we're bringing 100 influencers to the movie premiere. So we're really merging the aspect of traditional media and this new digital media together and really showcasing that creators are the next generation. Not even the next generation, they're current and they're now. Yeah.
And Dylan, one thing I wanted to bring up too is your college programs now are actually teaching
Yes.
creator programs. Can you just expand on that? Because it's a real thing.
Oh, 100%. And I think it's a very interesting landscape because you have those acting schools and you have those film schools, music schools as well in these universities. But, the creator economy is an actual viable business that is very lucrative for individuals. So we're seeing more and more universities, as well as Reach, really teaching about the skill sets that are necessary to be a creator full time. I think, 6 years ago, an average creator would think about dropping out of school, but now we're empowering students via education to, especially higher education, to learn about how they can be a successful content creator in the space.
I love that. All right, let's jump over to Jared. And Jared through Gondola, and he's going to tell you about the birth of his company. He had the foresight to sponsor this session. And because it's so integral to this business to have credentials and to prove to people that this is real. So thank you so much, Jared, for doing that. And he's going to share with you the birth of this company, which I think is reflective of what's actually happening in the industry.
They told me I'd get kicked out if I put stickers on if I wasn't a sponsor. So that just legitimized putting stickers on your chairs. So Gondola provides credits, analytics, and portfolios for the entire creative industry. Quick show of hands. How many of y'all create content? Okay. How many of you are creating for your own channels? Okay. And how many for other people, whether it's a brand or employer? Okay. My guess is for everybody that just raised their hand, when you have a piece of content that gets published by your employer or a brand that hires you, you're not getting credit for the work. So that is the problem we've tried to solve. This happened by accident. I run a production company in Denver called Fresh Tape Media. We were trying to track our work, and there wasn't an easy way to do so. So we built a system, didn't tell anybody about it. And then 2 years later, after realizing that we had built somewhere where if you pasted a link from Instagram, you could see who the videographer was, we've accidentally made IMDb for social media. So now Gondola is out in the world, and there's a couple things I want to sort of highlight for why this matters. First is on the left, tiny font. Sorry, you can't see anything there. It's a pie chart, sort of what the industry looks like. A lot of people, when they think about the creator economy, they assume we're talking about influencers, right? Or they may say that we're talking about freelancers. But we think that the majority of the creator economy truly is the individual creatives that work in-house at a brand, at an agency, at a production company. It's a much bigger piece of the pie than just the influencers and freelancers. And if you go on Twitter and you see a viral post, something that people are blown away by, everybody says, who made that? And there's no easy way to find out. You can see a bunch of people say, hey, I think that was Chad, but there's no IMDb for social content. So that's what we've built. So we built somewhere that creators can take credit and get analytics for all their work on social media. So by taking credit for a piece of content that your employer or somebody made, you get to pull in the analytics for that. And whereas in the past, if you were a brand and you hired a creator, you didn't want them saying that they made something. It was like very me. Brands didn't like that. But nowadays with Gondola, an employer can see who on their team is making what, so it's actually empowering them through the data. And it just works where you take a link from social media, paste it into Gondola. You can see that content embedded, and you can add the credits straight into our platform for anybody to see. This is an example where Vanessa Carlton redid 1,000 miles last week for a Washington Capitals thing, and I was the reason that happened. So I'm sorry or thank you, depending who you are. But that's pretty much it.
Let me ask Jared, so if I'm just an independent creator and I want to use your platform, am I paying a fee? Like, what's the business model? And you shared with us that both sides are using your platform, which to me speaks to a real economy if everyone in the ecosystem is finding value out of this.
Yeah. So the most important thing is we do not charge to take credit for your work, and we will never charge to take credit for your work. I know that's kind of thing that you say and you get in trouble in 10 years, but in general, if you're a broke college kid or a strong influencer with millions of followers and thousands of posts that you're creating content for, you shouldn't have to pay to get credit for that work. We have a freemium model so that people can pay for more exposure. And then we have a B2B SaaS model so that brands can pay to post jobs and get access to more creators.
And do you think that, or is this already happening? Are creators using a Gondola link in their bios and on their tree links and all of that? Because now it's becoming a valid way to prove who you are.
Yeah, it's 100% validating that if I go to Twitter, I can see thousands of creators who have just made their link in bio their Gondola. And the reason they do that is because it's something that tells what they're working on now. And if they leave that company or that job, the work will follow them. Versus like right now, if you are tracking your work with Sprout Social or one of the Sprinkler, one of the analytics tools, if you leave that company, then all the data and everything you've ever looked at's gone in the past. Gondola keeps it as you go.
Okay, great. So, that we're doing building blocks now. Now we're going over to Daniel, who launched the Creator Guild recently. Tell us about that, because when that news came out, at least in my LinkedIn feed in LA, I was like, oh my God, this is such a great idea, but who's going to be in it? Like, what does it mean? So share with us your history and how you came to sort of drive this.
Definitely. Let's connect some dots. I think what Dylan is sharing is that academically, foundationally, universities are starting to educate people about how to become a creator, which means that it's becoming a profession. And what Dylan Jared is building is around tracking the work that people are doing. A resume lacks the granularity of how work is changing, right? So you've got LinkedIn, which is tracking, I worked for a company from A to B, but work is changing. We're all becoming more creative. And that doesn't only mean generating content and putting it on YouTube. Just in your day-to-day jobs, it's becoming more collaborative. There's more of an orchestration involved in the work that we're doing in the world that we live in today. How many of you have heard of SAG or the PGA, right? Or SAG? So there are institutions that exist that provide protections and that provide promotion and the rights and interests of professional people, but nothing exists for creators. And that was really the origin for the Creators Guild, was frustration in not having a home and not being able to go to places for answers. So we're at the beginning of our journey, and lots of exciting news to share, as you'll see momentarily.
I know you want to tell us about what you're building specifically.
With regards to
Mosaic and all the...
Oh, yeah. So just this slide real quickly. I mean, I was asked, what is it that creators are looking for? And I think whenever you build an organization, the first thing you should do is ask the questions yourself. So what are the things that creators are facing challenges with? And this is what we've been hearing. Education. How do I do things? At the academic level, definitely if you go to a university, you can take some courses and learn, as Dylan has been sharing. But there's more to education that exists that requires people to understand how contracts work, right? Who understands content ownership or privacy laws or, perpetuity when you sign off to an agent deal. Resources like that are important that you may not be able to get from an educational resource. Secondarily, someone can help me here. Standardization. A big pain point in the creator economy is payment terms. And if this is your only source of income, it really sucks if you don't get paid for 90 days or 120 days. Who is to say what is appropriate in the economy? It's very much the wild, wild west. It still is. So we're working on establishing standardization for best practices within the community and in the economy. Help me. Yell it out. Opportunities. I mean, I think the creator economy is very much connected. It is a organism where people meet. It's usually very sellish or cliquish. But we're hearing conferences like this where people can meet across the entire spectrum of the ecosystem of creator economy. Again, creators, the way that we think about it, much like has been shared today, isn't only people in front of the camera. If you're an editor, you're part of the creative community. If you're an entrepreneur, you're part of this creative community. If you're a videographer, etc. And Jared has hit on a lot of those points. Being able to network and build teams to generate your own income streams and revenues also something that people have been asking for. And the last one is recognition. Jared's been building a really great system called Gondola, which he's shared about. But recognition, going back to this comment around your resume, does your resume really dictate the work that you do? It lacks granularity. It's very low resolution. And we need a system in place to recognize creators and their independent works. And that takes us to some infrastructure that we've also built. I think Jared has done a phenomenal job making it easy for people to credit the work that they've done very much on social media. We're really excited about what he's building. We've also built two things. We've built technological infrastructure called Mosaic, which similarly allows people to say, hey, I did this. There's a verification layer as well that ensures that the brand, let's say you did a collaboration with Nike, Nike would actually have to approve that that in fact happened. So there's a layer of verification on top of that system. What we've also done at the Creators Guild, which was recently announced about 2 weeks ago in Fast Company, check it out, is something that we call the Creator Code of Credits. Let's talk about standardization again. Well, under what circumstances should you be eligible to receive a credit if you worked on something? It can't just be anybody doing anything if we are treating this as a profession. So the Creators Guild has launched Creator Code of Credits, where an editor who worked on something would receive a created by credit. And let me tell you, we're in a very diverse ecosystem that is constantly changing. To lasso such diversity of skill set under one body of rules took 6 months of working with our board, advisory council, and our chairs, which Dylan is on. Thank you, Dylan. And it's a very collaborative experience to actually build some foundational rules to recognize creators as two things: professionals and the future generation of our greatest entrepreneurs. It's right here. It's in this room.
Great. And then you've also launched your platform.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you want to tell us about it?
Mosaic, try.onmosaic.com. We're in beta, mostly accepting feedback, lots of bugs. But we see it as an enterprise layer where other institutions and organizations can recognize the work that you're doing. W-2 employment is an interesting thing for those of you who know what that is. 1099, independent contracting, is a different animal, right? It's really hard to generate multiple revenue streams and to have some recognition in the business. What Mosaic is doing and what Jared and I are doing building our companies is really about acknowledging people at a granular level for you to have small wins to add on top to get hired, and to do so in a responsible and in an accurate way.
That's great. And let me just, applause is fantastic. And I think part of what we're talking about is getting applause digitally for what you're doing. But, what can you guys help us, anyone on the panel, just define the difference between credentials, credits, accreditation? There's a lot of words out there. So thoughts about that?
Okay. Rock and roll. Credit. What is a credit? I was watching an amazing movie this morning called Face Off. John Travolta, Nicolas Cage. Anybody? No? Classic. And I'm watching it. And the movie's starting. It's rolling up. Produced by, directed by, starring. Credit is acknowledging the ensemble. Credit are music notes. We're moving from oral tradition storytelling to actually having music that you can pass down, that people can play. Credit is acknowledgement of what you've done. How did I do?
Nailed it.
Okay.
Crushed it.
Reasonable, everybody? Anybody want to add something to that? Robin, good?
Oh, so one thing on credits that's interesting is on the Face Off movie, there may have been somebody that did one scene, right? They did the VFX on like when Nicolas Cage's face was like melting, right? And they still get credit, right? It's complicated when it comes to social media credits, because somebody may say like, oh, he didn't edit that video. I did that video. But if he edited one shot, that would have counted for an IMDb credit. So sort of we have to accept that credits can include the major characters, the producers, the DPs and everybody, but also the individuals that just did one clip. Yes.
Oh, yeah.
I got it, Jim.
I don't think anybody else got it.
I was saying, when you do any type of music, I'm a composer. And so when you put music or anything with music on it, there's a place for metadata. And when you fill in the metadata, that way, ASCAP, if somebody plays your song, your video on television or on any platform, then ASCAP collects the money and then they'll send it to you. But you have to do the metadata all the time.
Yep.
There's nothing for social media in that capacity right now. And I think that that's exactly what these two companies are building. You know, right now, if you're a music artist, you submit it upon releasing a song. You announce who the songwriters are. It's on Spotify. It's dictated out who the songwriters are, who the producers are. For social media, I mean, I have 6 million followers on socials.
Wow.
Thanks. I don't credit my editor because the caption doesn't fit that, right? I can't post every single person who's making my video, who's editing the video. Similar for a company, they're not going to announce who their social media assistant is who edited that video. So a platform like Gondola and Mosaic solve that problem in showcasing who those creators and creatives who made that piece are.
Yeah, the metadata side is fascinating because for like just photography, let's just say we're only talking about images. There's some metadata that you can get through raw files on what kind of camera it's shot with and when it was created and where it was created. But who took the picture? That's the big thing that's missing.
Yeah, I wanted to ask, I'm going to try and do questions over there. So unless it spills out, but
So tempting.
I know they're raising their hand. I'll come to you, but I just wanted to also ask you guys, just from a business model perspective, and I talked to you about this outside, because of what's happened with the strike and the guilds and also COVID and all of those things, we now have this decentralization of a lot of the workforce in media and entertainment. So are all those people creators too? Is everyone who is independent considered a creator?
I don't think we're in a position to tell anybody what they are. But I do think digitally native people haven't had a home for a very long time. If you're building games and worlds and AR and VR, it's always had to be put in a drawer. You had to kind of find a way to exist someplace else. And the CGA's mission is to be an official and original home built for you. And I believe that, you can have Disney and National Geographic and the ESPN pass. You can belong to multiple guilds and organizations. Again, it's a very diverse world. Creativity and art, it's difficult to put in a box, right? But we do have lots of people from other organizations and guilds joining the Creators Guild. We never define accreditation. I'm going to do it real fast. So credit is like a currency. It's how you acknowledge who created what, who did what. Accreditation is when there's a body of rules where a different organization has said, we will recognize that as being a professional within the rules that we've created, and that's the Creator Code of Credits that we've launched. So credits and accreditation is the almost legal knowledge of agreeing that work has in fact been done in a certain way that abides by the Creators Guild.
Jared?
I was just going to say that it's so fascinating how different creators get treated, not just how they identify themselves, but how they get treated based on who they are. So Dylan has 6 million followers. He has reach. So for the NBA, if they publish a piece of his content, they have incentive to mention him. They'll say, like, in the bottom of it, either like a icon with a colon.
Camera emoji.
Yeah. And then, they'll probably negotiate with him for usage. They may say, hey, Dylan may say, in my contract, I'm only going to give you 1 year of use for this piece of content. Meanwhile, all the work for hire people, a lot, like the majority of the people in this room and across this conference, those people are being told, oh, no, we have perpetuity for usage for your content. We're not going to mention you because we have no value of your distribution. And they're just as good of creatives as the folks with influence. It's just everybody's treated differently right now. It's not bad. It's like, cause the brand's incentives are just different. So.
Dylan?
I think that, I mean, when you think of what the creator economy is defined as, I think a lot of people really bucket it into just the people with followers. And I think that the whole connotation of what the creator economy is and should be is anyone who's working in this landscape. And I think we've talked about this and hit on this point, but you have the influencer marketing people, you have the videographers, the editors, you have a landscape that's much larger than those who are on the face on talent. And especially for my organization, Reach, I mean, we understand that this landscape is so much more vast. So I think, especially on our side with the college students, we have that connotation where people who aren't in college, who see Reach as an organization, they're like, oh, well, these are only people who have a following, who are full-time influencers. But no, we have those videographers, we have those back-end people, we have people who want to be in PR, talent managers, etc. And it's that entire landscape in reality.
I just want to ask you a question. Do you think that in a few years, videographers, editors are going to have the leverage to ask for usage stuff in a way that influencers can now, but most work for hire people can't?
If I understood the question correctly, I'm going to connect it with a different point that I wanted to make, which will get us back home on that question, if that's cool. The question about metadata. Creators come from the very beginnings of influencer marketing where you would get paid to endorse or do, create content for somebody. And there's a shift of creating your own content and being able to monetize that and getting paid directly. And that's kind of where we are now. But I think that payment is still contingent on brand deals or AdSense dollars from YouTube, etc. I think where we end up going, I hope I'm answering. I think where we end up going, and I'm going to use AI, this content will be watermarked that you upload. There will be a cryptographic signature and fingerprint on everything, much like music publishing. And you should, creators, receive royalties. You should receive royalties for your work that are out there surfing the internet. So I think that there's automation and improvement and efficiencies created with the scale at which content gets created. I think there's more ownership in the distribution process. And I think payments get made more efficiently directly to creators, as they should, as we've seen in other industries. Did I get some of that? Some?
What about, you brought it up, and I know every panel is going to mention it, but what about Gen AI and what's coming down the pike? And how are we going to work within that construct?
I love AI.
Yeah.
I think it's super powerful, and I think it should be a paintbrush in the toolkit. And I say this every time I speak on a panel, because every single panel asks questions about AI, but I think it's beneficial for a creator because it helps you with your productivity to be able to more efficiently create the content that your fans are going to resonate with. When I started social media back in 2016, and still now to this day, people aren't watching my content specifically strictly for the way I edit it or for the way that it's worded. It's about me as a personality and being relatable for people. And I think that at the end of the day, the most successful creators would be the ones who resonate well with an audience. It doesn't have to do with what tools or what softwares, me using Photoshop, etc., to leverage my following. It's really about how do I relate to this audience. So, AI tools that help me come up with video ideas or captions or thumbnails, those are making my life easier, which thus allows me to get a better output for my following that is more honed in to what my audience wants, and to be able to understand, okay, this is how I can gauge my audience and be able to resonate with them better. So I love AI on my side.
Yeah, I think that AI has been this big buzzword for the last year or so. If you didn't use AI as a word and you just told people that Photoshop added a new feature to help with backfills and stuff like that, people would just say, wow, that's a sick feature, instead of being scared of it. And I think that in general, as you said, it's like painters with different paintbrushes or different tools, right? In Picasso's days, they didn't have Photoshop and Lightroom, right? So they used what they had. So our artists of today are using the best possible tools. And if that means that somebody is actually a better prompt generator than they are an actual Photoshop whiz, that person could be the next best creative if they're using the best tools to their advantage.
Can we talk about what AI even is?
Yeah, I mean, there are certainly different kinds. That's the boogeyman 2 letters, but there are so many different kinds. So go ahead.
Okay, here's my horrible version. Apologies if there's any crazy AI people out there. We used to write code, and it would do a command, and you would set the rules around it, and it would do the command. So it's an alleyway with a destination. And AI is ping pong. It's a different game where it's studying and the ball goes back and forth, and then it makes more efficient decisions the next time around. So hence some intelligence there, because it can actually write its own code, if that's a reasonable explanation. So Sora or ChatGPT, Sora in particular, since creator, I think on the content side, certainly for ChatGPT as a means of getting smarter quickly. I mean, it writes most of my emails. It makes me sound a hell of a lot smarter than I am. And you train it. And I think that prompting skill set is a real thing. You have to educate it and kind of manipulate it like clay to get smarter with you. But I think AI is going to make us all more efficient. It's going to equalize intelligence. Here's my punchline. You ready? Okay. It's going to equalize intelligence, which is going to bring back an artistic renaissance. If we're all smart enough, we almost go back to, well, what makes us unique as human beings? So I think in a way it is a productivity tool. It is going to saturate the market with a lot of content, but it's almost like why I would choose making coffee in my house as an artisan, which I just brought an espresso machine. I'm still learning I suck, compared to going to Starbucks. And I do think content is always going to go back to purity. And back to Dylan's comment, I think that the relationship you have with your audience, for creators out there, you're going to be able to put your artistic spin on things, because that's going to be the differentiation in the future. It's your artistry.
I think that's a beautiful, positive way. Yeah, let's have a hand for it. Let's give credit. My one last question is, okay, we're dealing with all these big social media companies and platforms, and the biggest complaint about them is they take advantage of creators. So, but you guys many of you have specific relationships with them that are positive. So I just want to hear, how are we working with these algorithm machines, these big brands that have big names and that really own the doorway to a lot of the content that your peeps are creating? What's the story behind that?
Well, I want to give some context. I used to work at Vine. So for y'all that remember Vine, I was the head of sports partnerships for Vine. I don't know why I didn't bring that up earlier. Y'all would have thought I was cooler. Or I failed. One of the two.
Your sneakers are cool.
Thank you.
About sneakers.
What I learned at the time was just how hard it is to make money as one of those platforms and also show love to the creators. If you ask Lele Pond, Logan Paul, Jake Paul, King Batch, all of them, if for the first 3 years of Vine when they were popping, if Vine gave them anything outside of the opportunities for brand deals, they'd say no. Vine gave them nothing. There was a lot of press about them asking for money from us and then us saying no, but it wasn't like us saying like, no, we have this money, we're not going to give it to you. It just was unfeasible at the time. So I think that I know that people don't think of Meta, TikTok, and Snap and all these companies as like struggling small businesses, but I think that it's more challenging than people give them credit to both monetize their companies and give the creators, all of them, all sizes, a fair share of the pie, and for brands to feel like they're not overspending and all that. I think it's a little more nuanced.
I'm on the creator side, so he was obviously on the platform side, but I talk to creators every single day. And for us, I mean, it's really cool because we're seeing new ways for us to be able to monetize. Obviously, you have the traditional paid advertising, do an integration on your TikTok for 30 seconds promoting a brand. But I think we're now starting to see more platforms starting to develop programs to leverage creators, because they understand that creators have to dedicate some time on their platform. So they want to draw a creator in and be posting on that platform more and more. platforms like Snapchat. I get 20 million views every day on Snapchat, and that's a big payout. There's a new live streaming platform called Venivio, which is paying out creators better than I've seen any other live streaming platform pay out creators in the past. But then, on the more, brand side, we're seeing brands that are tapping into creators for focus groups and for beta testing and to do consulting. And we have brands that are giving creators equity as strategic advisors to lead the brands into how can they strategize in the creator economy. And we're seeing UGC content develop from creators and strategic partnerships. So the way that creators are starting to get paid now, beyond just the platform, has exponentially increased in addition to your average, online membership and courses that you can sell and merchandise. There's more and more ways for a creator to be able to leverage their following, and especially for reach, we're helping those creators to understand these are the array of opportunities at your disposal.
Jared?
Well, I think that there's an obvious correlation to that and to the music industry, right? Think about how many musicians make way more money touring than they do on their album sales now, right? So, and yes, they can complain that they get less on their streams than they want, but they're finding ways to rake it in if they're thriving in those other markets. So I see that a lot.
I'm going to break the rule of not asking questions because the man in the greenish shirt wanted to ask a question. But as I'm asking it, I also wanted to know, have there been any surprises for any of you as you dug into this business? I know you just launched this new business. Anything that really caught you off guard about it, positive or negative?
Lots of things. Yeah, definitely. I think a lot of the traditional world woke up quickly. I think that much like learning anything new, there's always resistance. It's difficult to learn new things. But we've also seen an outpour of support and leadership in the creator economy and creator community reach out to us. So it's been both. It's been trying to mitigate gently and establish friendships, some of the older institutions, shall we say, and simultaneously trying to understand how we can leverage the great people, which there are several in this audience and on this stage, and bringing them together to help unify the voice.
I'd say the biggest surprise is the lack of abuse of public-facing data. So we have the ability to take credit for your work on Gondola, right? We have over 1 million posts with credits on them. So we have 2.5 million or so credits, and we've had under 1,000 complaints of people abusing it or having inaccurate data reported. We have a pretty robust system to report. It's really easy to report that something is not accurate, but when people think that their full name and their accounts are associated with a public-facing data point, they are not likely to abuse it and take credit for work that's not theirs. This would be different if it was all behind a paywall, or if it was all behind some analytics tool that nobody could see. But everybody knowing that you can, if you take credit for something, everybody can see it. We've just had so little abuse. So it shows that the crowdsourced model for taking credit can really work.
I think on our side for reach, we've spent zero marketing dollars expanding it from one university to 75 plus universities, and we're on track to be in 250 campuses by the end of this year. So the fact that we've spent zero marketing dollars to grow this organization has been incredible. And I think beyond that, going off of what Daniel was saying with, all these different, institutions and organizations, we're starting to see the CAAs, the WMEs, the SAG-AFTRAs starting to understand and recognize that the creator economy is very vast, and how can they leverage the creator network? I know during the strike, we were told as creators to not promote any film, and we would be banned from SAG-AFTRA if we did, and that scared almost every single influencer. So the fact that, these old institutions recognize the power of creators has been super, super incredible to see the growth.
Let's ask the man in the green shirt. And you look good in that color, by the way. That's brave.
Okay. So, I do come from the traditional background. I know PGA SAG. My first class I ever taught was in film editing class. So this is on the credits and the credentials. You both mentioned about the idea, and you mentioned about institutions, universities, who they're teaching. Do you see the idea that we would start teaching the idea of the hierarchy of credits? Like you mentioned the guy who did the one shot with the VFX, I forget, I'm sorry. He would be considered a rotoscope artist in his credit. The one that edited one thing would be an assistant editor versus an editor. Do you see us heading to that nomenclature?
I don't know about the nomenclature, but the most exciting aspect of it is the granularity of detail that one day we can get to. So, when you're watching a show on Amazon Prime, and you pause and it tells you what actors are on there, we are living in a world where there is a future where somebody who is the rotoscope artist on that one shot, you could be able to click and see the shot that they actually edited. So I'm not 100% sure about the nomenclature in general, but I do know that we'll be able to source to a much more granular level what people worked on than ever before.
I would also agree and say yes. And instead of going up and down, I want you to think sideways. So we've introduced created by credit, but you can select up to 3 roles in that credit, because you may be an influencer in that post, but you're also an editor and you're also a producer. Or you may have been a writer and you're also a developer and simultaneously a producer or a writer. So we are actually stacking credits sideways. Regardless, yes, there is a infrastructure and system that will continuously evolve. We call our creator code of credits at the Creators Guild our 1.0, because it's going to change, because the industry that we're in, the technology, the gadgetry, the rules are always evolving. And I think that that's what makes this challenging, but it also makes it dynamic and it also makes it wonderful.
I think what's interesting is that when you think of the traditional film and TV, the content's made to make money and to make a profit, right? You have a film that is launched in a theater and you have it distributed to all the streaming services like Netflix. It's really hard to go to a movie theater and pause it and see who was in each scene and who edited a scene. You can't do that, right? But as a content creator, your content for the average creator is made for public distribution for free. So in the line of, is there a potential to in the future go scene by scene and be like, these are the people who helped make it? Well, that's going to be so democratized in the aspect that anyone in the future could potentially be able to see that without having to pay money for an HBO Max or for a Netflix subscription just to see who made a specific scene. So I think, in the future, that is something that is, technologically possible.
That's great. We actually have to wrap, but I wanted to say that hang out. We have a networking area here. All these guys are going to be around so you can learn more about what they're all doing. Fantastic folks to talk to who have lots of insights as all of you are building your careers. So let's have a big hand for our great session here. And stick around. There's more great sessions in the Creator Lab.
Thanks for taking the time to hear what we wanted to share. Thank you, guys.